Hello all. Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon. Today we'll talk about, from a user perspective, what's the difference between personalized design and the profile customization in Business Central. This is again coming from a question that was posted on YouTube comments. So let's understand what is the difference between these three and how and when we should use which one. And there are some of these which we should never use. So let's start from there. Okay. Let me open my Business Central. This is my Business Central production environment for SaaS. Now, when as a user you click here, and if you have the right permission set on a production environment, you will see the option to personalize, but you don't see an option to design. For that, let's jump to our sandbox environment, and we'll see what's the difference over there. So, on a sandbox environment, uh, you will, when we'll go into the same options here, we'll see some different options on the screen. Now you see a personalize as well as design, whereas in production, you are only able to see the personalize. Now let's understand the difference between a personalize and a design mode. A personalize is a change that a user does for his personal uses. So if I as a user would like to, let's get into bank accounts. On the bank account screen, because I'm a user who uses this page, I would like certain changes which are specific to mine. So I can go ahead and personalize it and say, okay, for me, um, what I need is bank account linking status is not needed. So I'll remove it. And the phone number should be moved. So you click on this red arrow and move it towards right. And once you're done with your changes that you need, and you can make other changes to other pages if needed. Let's say here, as a user, I would not be interested in looking at, or I'll be interested in looking into the email status part, which is currently hidden. Anything that is by default hidden from the design or from the development side by Microsoft or by your partner or by your ISV will always come into this cross sign or these lines in the personalized mode. So I say, oh, I'll need this. So I can go ahead and show this. Once I'm done with this, all the changes that I need, let's say I don't need this, I can hide this. As soon as I'm done with it, I'll click done. Now these changes will be effective only for my user. Any other user in my organization will not see these changes because these are personal changes that I need on my screens. So I hope the personalize is clear. The changes that you do on personalize are only applicable to you as a user and will not be visible or will not be applicable to other users who are using the same system. They can do their own changes and they'll see their personalized view. At the same time, there are ways to remove this personalization. And if you want, let me know. We'll talk about it, which is pretty easy. Nothing that complex. Let's talk about it here. If I'm here and I think, oh, I didn't like the changes that I made, I would like to revert them. So I can click on clear personalization and I get some options here. What kind of personalization you would like to clear? Only personalization that you have done on actions or only on fields, columns and parts because that's what I've done. Only views if you have personalized or all the changes that you have done. So like on the role center page, while doing the personalization, I also made this action invisible. So when I click on it, it now shows me only navigation menu because that's where my changes are. I didn't make any changes on actions or field columns parts and all. So as a user, I can say that, oh yeah, I made those changes, but I would like to revert those changes back. So I can come here and first clear the personalization for myself. You'll get a confirmation dialog, which is this will clear personalization of the entire page and restore it to the original layout. You cannot undo this. Do you want to continue? And once you say yes, these personalization will be reverted back to what Microsoft had, and you'll be back where the page look like. But remember, personalize is for the user who is personalizing their screens. The changes that you do on personalize cannot be ported from a sandbox environment to a production environment. So you'll have to do it every time. So you can't just copy paste personalization from a sandbox environment and move it to production environment. You will have to make those changes per environment wise. Hope that's clear. Now let's come to the design option, which was the first thing if you ever remember about Business Central. The first announcement from Microsoft on the MSDN page is how easy it to design it. To be fair, I don't like that option, and I'll tell you why. So first thing first, you can't do it on the production environment. You can only do it on the sandbox environment. So let's come back onto the sandbox environment. For the demo purposes, what I've done is I have already deployed two dummy extensions called dummy extension 1 and 2, and I'll also show you what the source code look like for those. So on the dummy extension 2 or 1, I have added a customer extension where I've added some fields on the customer list page. And on the vendor list, I have added some actions on the field. In the same way, on the dummy extension 2, okay, where is the extension 2? On the item list, I have added some fields at the first of your list. So there are some changes which are already done based on these pertinent extension which I have deployed on my sandbox environment. Now let's talk about the design one. So when you get into design, the look and feel is exactly or more or less similar to Personalize, but there are certain changes into it. One, let's say I go into customers and I would like to design or do some changes on the customer list page. At this moment, what I'm seeing is what coming from the pertinent extension that I built, and then this is what comes from the standard Microsoft field list. What I can do using this on the design mode is I can click on the plus field, which will show me all the fields that are added or available on the table. Sorry, not added, but which are available on the table itself. So if the search name is not available, it'll show me it's not added into the page, it'll show me ready. If it is already available in the page, it'll show me placed, and so on and so forth. So let's say I can just drag this field and place it wherever I want. Let's say as the first or the second field. Okay. As soon as the drag action will be over, it'll add that action and I can see it as it gets placed here on the customer list. Which feels like similar to personalized, but there are certain nuances about it, which we'll see in a while. You can make all the changes that you have done on the design phase or the personalized phase in the design view also, where you can make those changes, where you can add a field, where you can hide a column, where you can hide a part, and so on and so forth. Now I can, at this moment, it doesn't seem I can do actions, I cannot do parts, I cannot do pages, but I can surely add fields. At the same time, I don't like balance on date, so I'll hide this. Okay. And once I'm done, whatever changes I'm making, again, you can make changes to the multiple pages into one design mode. But as you make all the changes, you will at the end of the day will stop designing, which will show you a different option set. So let's try that. When I do stop designing, it tells me that the design is completed. But what the design is doing is creating an extension. So give it an extension name. So this is my demo extension one, and publisher is out of heading. Do I need to download the source code? Let's say no, I don't. Once I'm done, I will click save. It also tells you do not add personal data on the designer extension. Extension that has been created using designer are removed when the environment is updated, means either a cumulative update or a major update happens. These designer extension will be removed automatically. So let's save this. That actually created an extension called demo extension 1 in my extension management, and it gets deployed automatically on this environment. Now remember the changes that you're doing. It's creating an extension. And every time a extension gets created, and let's try one more thing so that I can prove what I'm trying to say. I get into the vendor screen and I click again the, or let's go into the item screen just to keep it simple. I don't want to create multiples, so for sure. So then I'll go into design. At this point, I would like to again add some fields. Can I do that? Let me see. It doesn't show me adding a field, which is doesn't look right. Let me see. These are different views where you can access on a tablet, on a mobile client, so you can actually see where you're making changes and all. I'll come back to the laptop mode, and I don't see that action, which is weird. Okay, let me stop designing and let me get into the design again. Okay, I can't do stuff. Okay, but for the demo, I'll just hide this field. Oh, you have previously personalized the item page. If you want to reload this page without personalizing changes, unlock the page, which means if there are personalization done on a page, it will not allow you to design the page. So let's do an unlock page and see what happens. It actually deleted any customizations that I've done in the personalized mode and now forcing the design mode to be activated where I can see the fields menu again. Now number 2 is not added. Let's drag it in and place it somewhere and it'll get added as we did on the customer list page. And then let's also, I hope it's this. I don't think so, but let me drag it again. The process remains same, nothing else. So let's do this. And then I don't want, because the block region is coming empty, let's remove that field. That's just taking space and it's not even visible to me. And because my users are more comfortable with the number 2 rather than the number field, I would rather add that instead of the block region field. So as it gets added, we'll just remove the block region. This all sounds fun, right? That we are making these changes on a production environment without the help of our partner. But we'll come into the problems with this process. Because as I said in the beginning, I am not a fan of the design mode. But we'll see what happens and why I'm not a fan of it. So while this is happening, remember the 2 extensions that were built just for you, and you might be using some pattern extensions and some extensions from ISVs. Those all are maintained in your source control of your customer from your partner. Any customizations done for you in your PDEs are managed in the source control of your partner, and they are the gatekeeper of your source code. So let's stop designing here and let's do this as demo extension 2. Okay, again, I'm the publisher, no download code, and save. So what actually happened when I made these 2 changes on the design mode is that these changes are deployed as an extension of type dev in my extension management window. Now remember, as I was making changes, and as I said earlier, these changes will create extension. Anytime the extension is created and when I'm making changes on the page, either it's doing a page customization or it's using a page extension. So let's go back and into our extension management window on our sandbox, and we'll see that other than these 2, there should be 2 more. here. Demo extension 1 and demo extension 2 from Saurabh of type dev, whereas mine were PTEs. So now we see the two dev extension. Now again, the same situation. I cannot just copy these and move it to production. The only way that I can do it is to download the source code for these dev extension and then deploy them again on my production environment. So let's try doing that. Let's try download source, which is done. And let's try download source again for the second one. And let me open my download section, which is, let me see, which is here. Let me zoom this in if I can. Okay. Now, let me extract this so that we understand what happened when we did those changes. Extension 1 and okay, extract all and extension 2. So as these got created, let's open the first extension into VS Code and see what happened. Okay, open with code. So here is our first extension. What does the first extension bring into the picture? It says that I have created a page extension where you moved the search name after the balance field. And then you also modified balance as date to visible false. Now remember, it is using the number as 50,000 because that was the first number that was available at that moment. In the same way, when I open the second one into VS Code, it also created a page extension. And this time it took 50,001 because the 50,000 was already taken from the previous extension. So it remembers, it scans what are the object IDs that has been used and then use the next possible number. But now think about your partner who is managing or who's the gatekeeper of the source code. He have no clue that due to these designer extensions that you have built, you have already consumed two page extension IDs. It'll always be a nightmare for them to kind of deploy a solution, then get an error that this number is already used and then rechange it, and they have no clue what objects you are using. That's one problem. But then there is one more problem to this, or two more problems to this. The first one is here on app.json because this extension made some changes on the fields which are placed by my dummy extension. It automatically took a dependency on dummy extension. Even if there's nothing much, as in I just added a field somewhere. If I would have added as pertinent extension, I would have added it on add first into the same sequence and all. And in the same way, I would have modified the block region easily without taking a dependency on the dummy extension. And base app extension, that's okay. That everybody does. That every extension have this dependency. So I'm not worried about this one. I'm actually worried about this one. In the same way, what is the second extension? Okay, maybe this one. Yes, this one also have a dependency to my dummy extension one. So anytime I'm making an update on dummy extension one or dummy extension two, I'll always have to unpublish or uninstall these dev extension and then reinstall them because they are dependent on my parent dummy extension 1 and 2, which is always a bad idea. So three major problems. One, it not randomly, sequentially it takes an object ID in case of the design mode, and it'll always be a problem for your partner to make sure that there are no gaps into the number series or object IDs when they are creating these extensions for you. Second, it does it not into the Microsoft suggested way. Microsoft always suggests that, at least what I've read, that you should always use at first or at last while adding fields into a page. And then users can move elements here and there using the personalized options. But if you look at it, it always uses add after or add before based on where you place it. Two problems. Third problem is it takes a dependency on the extension that it is modifying. Think of an ISV that is already part of that page which you are designing. Will also take dependency on that ISV extension. Now, to come up with how you publish these guys back into Business Central, you will just have to download the symbol. So let's do a download symbol first. Okay, and there is no configuration to this. Okay, control space to trigger intelligence. Let me see if I can add a configuration. Okay, okay, sandbox, sandbox. Okay, let me download the symbols. And as soon as you download the symbol, if these, now remember, because there is a dependency to the dummy extension, these extensions should be available on your production environment in this case. If they are there, it'll take the dependency, it'll download the symbols that are needed for this. Once that is done, it'll kind of become a PDE. It will not remain as a normal extension or dev extension. So let it download the symbol and let me try again. It sometimes takes some time because this is a time consuming process sometimes. But let me pause the video if it makes sense and we'll see when the symbols are downloaded. I'll start it. Can I pause it? And I think I can. Yep. Okay. So the symbols have been downloaded for the both apps. What I'll have to do is now I have to do a build. Control Shift B, which downloads the symbol here. And in the same way, I'll have to do a Control Shift B here to generate the app. Now I have both these apps available. Now what I can do at this point is go back to my production environment, go to my extension management, and then install these extensions because I already have my dependencies which are needed, dummy extension 2 and 1, because they are taking dependencies on those. I can just go ahead and pick the folder where these guys are. Here maybe demo extension 1. This becomes the demo extension 1, and I'll paste it here and then take this from here. Now remember, when you're deploying these extensions like this, they are not will not be deployed as type dev, which they are on Sandbox when you look at it. These are published as dev. So they will be published as PDEs. And that's very important to notice that now when your partner or any other developer who looks at your system, consider that these are pertinent extension and these are not developer extension. And anytime you have to make a change on these two extension on which there's a dependency of your development extension, these development extensions, which now will be PDEs, will have to be uninstalled while these upgrades are happening. Now it doesn't stop here. We have explained it to a customer. He still wanted to do it, and he ended up with extensions created as deb with 20 other dependencies, literally 20 other dependencies, because he went into, and they have 50 odd dev extensions, which makes their life tough because every time they would like to move into production, they come as PTs. There are ways to merge these in, but that's a very time consuming process for your partner. So some of you who are watching this may say, "Oh, so Saurabh, you're talking about all this problem. So is there no solution for it?" And there will always be these kind of problems that exist with these kind of extensions. So let's do this while this is getting published, which already got published. And look at this. This came as PD. Let's also deploy the other one while we continue talking about the best alternative for this, which I prefer and recommend to everyone. Because remember, anything that you're changing as design is applicable to every user in the organization. It's not only applicable to you, as in the personalized mode, it's very personalized to you. In the design mode, that applies to every user who is using the system. So it's a global change which runs across every user who is using the system. And then while you're building these on a SaaS environment, to be very fair, remember one thing that mm, if you don't take a good care of these extensions, they will be removed because they are of type dev once the major or the minor upgrade happens, which my minor update happens every month. So what I'll do is I'll remove these dev extensions just to show you the other way around, because this is not the preferred way until unless Microsoft says that there is one dev extension per customer. So if there is one dev extension per customer, I might start recommending using dev extensions or the design mode, because that still makes sense that you have one single designer extension. It'll still be a problem for your partner in terms of what object IDs you are using. So the next request that I'll have from Microsoft is one designer extension per customer if possible. And second, it strictly should have a way to define what object ID this designer extension will use. Because we would like to keep it separate from the rest of the PDE development. And to keep it simple, if there is an object range or the object ID range that I can define for designer extension, and there is one designer extension per environment, I'll be the happiest person to start at recommending the dev extension as the way, or the designer extension as the way going forward. This still cause problem here when you deploy them on production, but that's asking for so much, I guess, at this point. Okay. Having said that, is there no solution for it? There is. And that's where you as administrator come up with lot and lot of power of how better, or and how in the best way you should be maintaining your environments while you're making changes, design level changes, which are applicable to all the users of the system. And that's where the profile comes into the picture. Every user who is using Business Central have an access to a default profile, which in my case is right now set as Business Manager Evaluation. In the user personalization, administrators will, or user settings, administrator will define that which user have what role, and this role will be used when they log into the system for the first time. So if my administrator decide that I would be sales order processor, then I surely as a non-admin user will not have access to this area of Business Central. As soon as I re-log into Business Central, it'll change my screen to say that I'm a sales order processor. So that's something that administrator can decide based on users' settings, that which is their default profile that they get loaded to. Can they change their profile? I'm pretty sure there are ways to control that using permissions and access to the system. So now if you see, my screen have completely changed because now I have a role of sales order processor. Now, as an administrator, you should identify the groups of user which will be using different profiles. So let's say there are 10 other sales order processors like me in my company, and they all have been assigned the sales order profile. For sales order profile, any changes that I as an administrator would like to make sure that all the sales order user processor have a consistent screen view, what I can do is I can go to profiles, and in the profiles, I can choose the profile that I would like to do some changes. Let's say in this case, sales order processor. Using these three dots, I can do a customize page. What that does, it opens a separate tab in a similar kind of design mode. but you can make same amount of changes as you can do in the design mode, which I'm here. You can notice it with this red sign here that it is customizing the sales order process. So I can come back to my customers, open the link, and here I can again add fields, and this time I'll add the name too as I need it, as needed here, and I'll hide the balance as date as we did there. Remove. Again, as you did in the design or the personalized mode, you can also come to the other screens at the same time and make changes. Like on the this list, I would like to place the number 2 field, which is not available here. Now that's a limitation based on what fields are being added by the design. So, as in by the developer, it doesn't show you all the fields that are available in the page. So that's surely a difference between the design and the uh, personalized slash profile customization. So let's assume this was zero. I'll drag the shelf number here, and I don't like to see the block region, so I'll remove this. At the same time, at this point, I would also like to go to some other screen and make certain changes into it. So I'll go back here and I'll go into my, and you can do all the search and everything. So I would like to go to my vendors. In the vendors page, I would like to make some changes, which is I would like to place my name to as a first field, and then I don't like address too because it's always empty for me as a user. And this is not just it, as in you are not just limited to make changes on the list page, which I've been showing on all the screens or demos, which I just remember about it. I can actually open this as a card part or as a card page and also make changes here. I can say, okay, this field is not needed, or this field will always be show and collapse. So when I do collapse, I should be able to see this. This field should be moved from here to here, and that's done. So on and so forth. If I don't like the payment fast app, I can go ahead and say, okay, can I do the fast app? I'm not sure, but let's give it a try. I can't do the whole fast app, I guess, but I can again hide certain fields if needed, or remove certain fields, or move some fields and all. Once I'm done with all the changes that I wanted for all the users who would be using the sales order processor role, which is here. Let's go back to the role center page. I would also don't like these guys to see my user task because that's we don't use it. So let's hide it. Sales order processor, let's assume don't send emails. So let's hide this. They don't deal with approvals. So let's hide this. Oh, they don't need anything on the self-service menu. Hide it. And rest all looks okay. Whatever is visible is visible. So what I've done, I have made changes to the customer page, to the items page, to the vendors page, and also to the role center page. And I click on done. As soon as I click done, it says customization completed successfully. Your customization to your role that or profile that you have selected are saved, and you can close the browser tab. So this recording is done. As soon as I refresh my screen, I should not be able to see email approvals, user tasks, self-service and all. So let's refresh this. Okay. Once I refresh this, it will remember all the changes that you have done into the profile mode and will show you only those things which were available after the changes that you made. You can again go to the items. You'll see the shelf number added. You'll not see the field that we have removed in that mode. The beauty of using this is here when you are doing this on your sandbox where you're testing, where your users are testing, where they are requesting changes from you. You can always click here and say export profiles. When you do that, it opens up a wizard, which is here. Or it did that. Hmm, that's weird. Okay. it downloaded a zip file called profiles.zip. At the same time, let's come back to the production where we are in now. I can go back in and I can say, okay, first thing first, I'm not this guy. I am my sales order processor. Okay, so remember this. And then whatever I have downloaded from the sandbox as profiles, I would like to upload it back into my production. There is no code for it, there is no overlapping on it. What I can do is I can do a navigate back to the profiles page, and here I can do the import profile. And guess what? I'll have to select a package, which is the profiles.zip file that I've just downloaded from Sandbox. And it tells me that from where you have downloaded this, there are some additive changes into the order processor role, which is sourced from the base application. But there's this empty profile just to keep this process in sync. So you can skip this if needed, and you can just keep this and say import selected. As you're done with it, it tells you that it has been selected and you are good with it. Let's refresh this and see what happens to my order processor role center page because there are so many items into it. Eventually, it should remember what kind of changes I've done, and I should be able to see only what I need, which is this. The beauty of this mode is that you can also come here into your profiles page, search for your profile that you're making changes, and then from here, go to customize or open this maybe, okay, and see the customize pages. It'll tell you what changes you have done. It is not storing or creating extensions. It is just creating the profile, not the profile, page customization. The only problem with the design mode that it creates page extension, not page customizations. The beauty of the page customization is that it does not uh, requires an object ID. And the beauty is that if you have problems at any point, you can also seems to be troubleshoot things from here. That everything looks okay or not. If there are problems, they should be listed here. So I hope this clarifies doubt between personalized design and profile customization. Personalize is your personalization, the way you want your screens to be visible only for you. So this is a local change that you're making for yourself. Design is a change which you want to make globally. The only problem with that approach is that it creates an extension. And as many designer extension you'll create, that'll be hard to manage as you go forward because they take dependency based on what element where you're placing them and so on and so forth. The only benefit of design mode is it allows you to add any field on the page which is available in the table, either added on the page or not by Microsoft. But that's the only advantage of it. The disadvantage is endless. It not randomly but sequentially takes the object ID, which can cause confusion to your partner. It's very hard to manage because they are not tracked on source control and they have cross dependencies with one or multiple apps. Sometimes designer extension take dependency on other designer extensions. They are very hard to move from a sandbox environment to a production environment because you have to convert a dev extension to a PD extension, pertinent extension, while you're moving it to production environment. To best utilize Business Central customization capabilities, you should use the profile customization because that way you can define and have a similar look based on the profile or the roles that users have into the system, and they all will get a consistent view as they need it. The beauty is you can just export those profile customizations and import them back into a production anytime you need. You can also troubleshoot the customized pages that are part of the profile customizations. So hope that clarifies the doubt between personalize, design, and profile customization. And the person who asked this question on chat, hope he gets the answer what he needs. I would highly encourage you to not to do design more changes or designer extensions. There is something coming up into the next release, so we'll wait for that to be announced. Once that is announced, it's kind of announced, but we'll wait for the general availability. Once that comes into the picture, I think the design will be less and less relevant as we go forward. If you are on-prem, I would highly recommend to disable the design feature, which is possible with the setting. But keep this in mind that you should always use profile customizations or personalize. Profile customization for all the users in that profile. Personalization are changes for you. Try not to use design as much as you can. Hope this answered your question. Do share this video with your colleagues. If you have questions, if you have any other comments about design, if you think differently about design, drop me a comment. Sorry, and I'll try to answer your question. And maybe I'm wrong. So do subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Do share the video, and I'll see you next day with the next video. Have a nice day.